Hey, what's up? Let's create this photorealistic scene in Unreal Engine 5. It's your boy A to the K to the K, Alexander King Kwame. Welcome to Hoodie Studios. So before we create a photorealistic scene, we will have to consider some things, and I will categorize these into 4 things. 1 is light, 2 assets, 3 scene, and 4 our camera. Now all these 4 points will sum up my workflow. So maybe in other workflows we will have to add in textures, but this is the workflow I'm gonna use based on my workflow. That's why I have light, assets, scene, and camera. Okay, this is Unreal Engine. You have to understand why. So in Unreal, I will go to File and I will say New Project, and under Games I will make sure I have ray tracing on, and I will just name my project. Okay, so I will have to create a new level, so I will click Ctrl+N and I will get a basic level, and I will select the basic level and I will say create. So once we have this in, I try and bring in a sphere. That's what I try to do most times, and I will save my level. So first things first, I will go to advanced settings and I'll make sure I have invert middle mouse pan. I will select that and I'll go to advanced and I'll say orbit camera around selection, and mostly I try to enable autosave. I turn it off most times, but I mean that's user preference. So we have to go to the plugins and we have to bring up some things. Now you remember the first one we have to talk about is lightning. So it's our light, so we have to deal with our light. So to deal with our light, since we are talking about photorealism, we will have to go in for HDRIs. I mean, take it or leave it. So to get that, we will have to go to the plugins and we will search for HDRI, and I will select that. Then we will have to restart Unreal Engine, but since we don't want to be doing the restart every time, so since I have the HDRI on, then I will move on to the movie render queue. So I will select that one too, and again for our last one we will need aces, so I will say OCIO and I'll select this one too. I'll say yes. So then I can click restart. So since we gave our scene a restart, then we will have to go to our content and I will have to double click our level to open our level. Now in our content, I will have to create an HDRI file. So I'll go HDRI. So then I will drag in and drop my HDRI files. Now if you want HDRI files, then you have to hop on to Polyhaven for your HDRI files. So this is my HDRI here in my HDRI folder. So now talking about HDRI, I have 2 tutorials about HDRI. You can go and check it out on how to move around with HDRI, but this tutorial is not about the basics of HDRI. This is we making a photorealistic scene. Okay, so before I move, I will have to go to light and I'll say HDRI backdrop. Now this is where I will have to click my direct light and I will search for visible. Visible, and I will unselect it. I will go to the sky atmosphere, unselect that one, skylight. I will unselect it. Volumetric cloud, I will unselect that one too. So we only have our HDRI in the scene, and it's looking pretty cool. So what we are gonna do right now is to change our HDRI. So I will select this one, and I will go to our HDRI, and I will say use selected asset from content browser. So this is gonna be our scene in here. Okay, now we can see the projection is not quite okay. So what we can do is, again, this is all in my HDRI tutorial, so you can go check it out. What we can actually do is we have to set the projection. So we will say use camera projection right here, and when we set it, we have our HDRI okay in our scene. All right, so now we are kind of passing the lighting side, because we have our HDRI here, and also we also kind of have a background which is being created by the HDRI. Now you can add any backgrounds you really want to add, but the HDRI is giving us a step ahead. So it's kind of pushing us into making a 50% of our scene. You remember we talked about light, asset, scene, and camera. Now we have the light, and we have a little bit of our scene. That's the background. So let's dive into our asset. Now to get our asset, we will have to get into Megascans to get photorealistic asset, and that is why Unreal Engine is so powerful, because we are kind of eliminating the hassle of creating textures and creating assets on our own. But now we have asset in the Megascans library. So I'll go to Bridge, and I already have these assets downloaded, so you can see them here. And I will bring these assets into my content browser. So I have all my assets already exported into our content browser. So when we go to Megascans, we will have 3D assets and surfaces. So I would like to go to shapes and a cube. I'll add a cube, and I'll bring this cube up, and I will try and boost the scale a little bit, so something like this, and maybe I'll move it to the top, something like that. And I will delete the sphere. So this is actually where I'm gonna place all my stuffs on. So I want to give this a texture, so I will go to the surface, and I will drag this texture on it. So it's gonna be something like that, but I wanna tile it a little bit, so I will say 2 to 2. Okay, and I'll say save. So just like that. So we are gradually building our scene, and in conjunction of it, we are also building our assets. Okay, remember with the HDRI giving us a background already, so we are doing it together, you understand? So I will go to my 3D assets, and I'll have all the assets we need here. So you can see all the assets right here. So literally I want to go in for a cutting board where I will place all my fruits on. So I will drag and drop this cutting board into the scene. I'll bring it a little bit to the top, so move it somewhere here. I'll drag it just like that, and I will try and scale it up a little bit, so something like this. And I'll make sure I'll be dragging it just above, so just like this. Okay, so we would need to add in our first fruit, and I would like to go in for the apple pack. So I will drag in and drop my apple. So I will make sure it's actually sitting on our cutting board. Okay, so gradually we are arranging our scene, and so I will bring this apple in between, in the middle, something like this, because I feel like I will have to focus on this red apple. It depends, you know. But now you see we are not struggling with textures because we already have the textures on our asset. Now that's the power of Megascans. So I will bring in another apple and maybe place it at the back here. And maybe our last apple, so something like here. Maybe we are getting too much apples. Maybe somewhere here. And I'm gonna go for a banana, and I'll have to move and bring it down like that, and I'll rotate it just like this. And I will push it backwards. Okay. So I will go in for the avocado, and I will bring it into the scene, and I will kind of boost the size a little bit, so just like this, and I'll rotate it, kind of making it look like the banana is supporting the avocado. So push it a little bit to the front. So somewhere here, and okay, so just like this. So you can see how gradually we are building up the scene, and maybe a lemon, maybe somewhere here. Now I'll push the lemon right here, so I'll try and scale it up just like that. So that one right here, and I'll go in for another. So this is gonna be the melon. So push it up. Okay. And I want the orange. Oh, this is the texture, sorry. So this is the asset. So the orange, so I will kind of boost the scale. So just like that. And maybe getting closer to the apple. And for the watermelons, I will place them at the back of the scene. They will not actually get in the scene, so I will actually get a board for them. and this one too. So they will actually be at the background of our scene. Okay, so I will go to the apples pack, and I want this apple to fall just here. So maybe it's acting too big, so I will kind of shrink the size a little bit. So just like this, and I will push it maybe to the back a little bit. And let's see, maybe if I can add another one. Okay, this one. Maybe it's gonna be here. And I feel too much heaviness around the left side, so maybe I will bring this guy at this point. Okay, and let me see if we have something that's not actually in the scene yet. So let me try this guy here. Okay, so I will actually get another board, the cutting board, and I will place it just beneath the watermelon asset. Okay, yeah, so this is the new scene that we just got just by placing in some assets. And I want to correct some things because some things are not actually sitting well on the cutting board, so I will try and move them to the top. Let me see. Okay, so they are really looking cool. So now we are almost done with the light, asset, and scene. Especially we are done with the scene and the asset. About the light, now you can choose to bring in some lights you want to bring in, but I don't want to do that. I want to still hit my HDRI again. All these stuffs I'm talking about, the HDRI, is in my tutorials about the HDRI. So I'll go down and say skylight, and under source type, let me dive in so you can see. I want to select SLS captured scene. I will go in for SLS specified cube map, and all of a sudden our scene goes black because the cube map is actually requesting for the same HDRI in our scene. Sometimes you can choose any HDRI you want to use, but I mean, we need the same lightning and everything, so I will go in for the same HDRI in our scene. So yeah, I will select it and I'll pop in here. Okay, so now we have the HDRI coming in as our light source to light up all our assets. So as I said, you can go in for some lights and place in some lights as how you want things to be. So let's talk about camera, and let's see how camera will change this scene into another scene, which is gonna be crazy. So we will go in and say create camera here, and I'll say the scenic camera actor. So now before we do anything else, Actually, we should have done this at the beginning. So what we are gonna do is I will go in for the visual effect and pass processing volume. I will create a pass processing volume and I will search for infinite. So infinite extend into bracket unbound. I will select that and I will go to my exposure and I'll set it to manual. So this time I will pull the exposure I'm looking for. So something like this is cool. So I will copy my exposure values and I'll go into the camera, and in the camera I will go under length, exposure, and I'll go in for manual exposure and I'll paste our exposure values into our camera. So let's dive into our camera and see what's going on. Now we don't have exact same as the scene because of the ISO and the depth of field of the camera, our aperture. So to actually get that, we can actually first we have to know where we want to focus on. So I will go to the camera and the lens type, I'm gonna go in for a 50mm. So the 50mm is gonna give it an accurate depth of field. That's why I'm mostly going for the 50mm. So since I want to focus on this guy, I will go into the camera and I'll go to focus settings and focus method. And focus method, I'm gonna select tracking. So under tracking settings, I will click on this picker and I will select on our apple. So from this, you can see how the camera just changed our scene with the depth of field. You can feel that with the depth, just the depth of field, giving us a more accurate scene. So this is where I want to place my camera at. So you can see how the camera just changed the scene from this. So let me just get closer. So this to that. Now, since we have our camera, this is when I can populate some stuffs in my scene. So this is our scene. So all we have to do is make some camera movements and we are good to go. So this is how I actually did it, but I will also take it a step further using the ACES workflow and getting it into DaVinci Resolve to get my final image out there. So thank you all for watching. Peace out. Take care. I love y'all. Goodbye.